It's Friday. That means it's a mail day. Come along and let's see what came this week, ending March 20th for the RKM Collection. Welcome to this week's episode of Mailbox Central, where we review what cards came in the mail this week for the RKM Collection. We try to do this every Friday for those who are new to the show, and hope you enjoy. Basically, wanted to first touch base and encourage everyone to like and subscribe. The channel's growing. We've now hit double digits in subscribers, which is great. And I've had some recent uptick since the Philly show post about a week or so ago. So welcome to those of you that are new, and we look forward to joining along with us as we review the cards that are coming in through the RKM Collection. My name's Adam, for those of you who don't know me, and wanted to take just a moment to talk about some recent videos that came out. TPott in particular posted a video kind of comparing the submission results from the different various grading companies, SGC, TAG, PSA. And what he was doing, he was taking cards, submitting them, cracking them, and then resubmitting to the either the same grading company or to a different company, just to see kind of what results came back. And I think that video is now up to over 200,000 views, and really pulls back the curtain a little bit on the variation within grading. I've always been a firm believer of, collect the card, not the holder or the tag. But I think we all have to be careful because we're all trying to protect our assets too. And we want to make sure that, when we pass and, someone else takes over our collections, that they're able to get either to continue building that collection or to get the best return possible if they need to liquidate or the estate. So I've always been I always kind of lean towards collecting the highest grade possible when it was financially made sense for me. Now I started collecting back, in the early, graded cards back in the 2011, 2012 time period. And back then, I mean, you were able to pull cards at a much significantly lower price point than what they are today. So that allowed me to kind of have that philosophy. I would say, hey, I want to make sure, all of my T206s are a PSA 3 or greater, or things along those lines. That's not the case anymore, though. I feel like the grading standards have changed a little bit since then. And, again, as we've learned more about how grading works and such, I think, when you're looking at, a 9 versus a 10, for example, it can be really difficult to tell the difference. But in some cases, you can still see the differences. Maybe it's a slightly off-centered just by a little bit, and that's what kept it from a 10. But otherwise, the corners, the registration, everything else looked really great. So make sure when you're collecting the card, not necessarily the holder. Always look for those best examples within a grade. You'll find that there's a lot of wild variation. If you can get a 4 that looks like a 6, then that's awesome. If you can get a 9 that you think looks like a 10, that's great too. If you can save the 15 times price increase that they're going to charge you for the 10. When I go after modern cards today, I try to stay towards 10s, but, there's some 9s I've picked up and I think they're just as good. And I think in the long term, we're going to see some shifts possibly, within the hobby. So kind of keep that in mind as you're picking up cards for your collection. I'm trying to do that with mine, and I think this week, 2 good examples of that. I have 2 cards that came this week in the mail, and let's take a look at those now. All right, so like I said, we have 2 cards this week for the RKM collection. The first card is to help grow out our Brooks Robinson player set, basic player run. This week we have the 1969 Topps Brooks Robinson card number 550. And this card here, we were able to obtain last week. And again, a great example of 69 Topps. Really crisp. It's a little off center, a little bit wider on the right than the left. You know, I think that's what cost the card here from a 10. But otherwise, you know, the corners look real sharp. The image looks great. No blemishes or print dots or anything like that on the card. So really happy with this PSA 9 example of the Topps Brooks Robinson. Again, this helps add to our current player run that we're working on. If you've been watching the last couple weeks, the last month or two, you've seen we've started to slowly pick up Topps Brooks Robinson cards. Here we have the back of the card. And Brooks was an all-star for the 7th time in 1968 and led the O's in base hits. You know, Brooks Robinson, again, valuable Hall of Famer here, known for his glove, a stalwart with the Orioles during the 60s and 70s. So again, started building out the Brooks set earlier this year, and now we have the 69 Topps Brooks Robinson to add to the collection. So that's card number 1 this week. And then card number 2 takes me back to my childhood and a player that I didn't really like as a kid, but I know that some of our subscribers are big fans of him. And that would be Donnie Baseball. And this is his 1984 Donruss, number 248. Obviously, this is one of those iconic cards of the 80s. One of the biggest cards we would that were being targeted in local card shops all across the United States. And this is Mattingly's rookie card, obviously, and get a nice big headshot of a Big Don in this card here. So again, Mattingly, great player in the 80s. Obviously, injuries kind of cost him later in his career, but there was a period of time where he was probably the best or one of the better players in the American League and in baseball itself. So Don Mattingly, 1984 Donruss. This is in a PSA 9. Now this one here, again, maybe like a little bit off-centered here, maybe a little crooked here, but not by a lot. You know, it's a pretty clean version here. Happy to have it part of the set. You know, the 10s are, become kind of outrageous in price. So wanted to go for a 9, to add to the collection, to kind of round out, the 80s. And obviously, this is a card that's part of the top 300 cards of the 20th century set that we're working on by Mike Payne. So help fit into that collection as well. Let's take a look at the back. And again, here you have some stats for Donnie Baseball and his career highlights, which weren't many at that point in time. You know, he'd only played in, about a season, half a season up to that point. So again, early on in his career, this card came out, but the 84 Donruss, one of those cards that'll be long sought after, especially for Yankee collectors, well down the road. And the PSA 10s, I don't think they're coming down in price. So this is a good example of a PSA 9 that we can take advantage of for our collection. And again, we'll put this in there. Happy to have that for our top 300 set. So again, that's 2 cards this week. The 69 Topps Brooks Robinson and the 1984 Donruss Don Mattingly. So there you have it. That's two cards for the RKM collection this week. We had the 1969 Tops and a Brooks Robinson and a PSA 9. And then we had the 1984 Donruss, Don Mattingly, and a PSA 9. Previously, I would have went for that 10 in the Mattingly card, but I'm happy with the 9, and it looks great and helps fill out the collection. So, again, I encourage you to collect what you like. Make sure you have the best that you can get, and the best that's going to make you happy. If that means you're collecting ones, that's great too. I have some cards in ones holders and 1.5 and 2 holders that I cherish just as much as I cherish my, PSA 10 Cal Ripken Jr. rookie card. So realize that, we all have to work within budgets. Don't overstretch yourselves when you're collecting. Collect what you like. Try to find the best example or best copy you can without necessarily looking at the grade. Just make sure you're not overpaying too much, for those cards to do that. Don't stretch yourself too thin. The more you spend to get a higher grade of card A, the less you're going to have available for card B. So keep that in mind as you're continuing to build out your collections, and I'll try to keep that same advice to myself for myself. But thanks again for tuning in this week to the RKM Collection and Mailbox Central. Everyone have a great weekend.